In this video, I'm going to share with you a step-by-step guide for how to get your website up and running, the things to think about, and then how you can take advantage of that presence online. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Binley, and I'm the founder of Straight Up Digital. I've had an agency for the last 15 or 16 years, and I've been sharing these tips with clients for a little while now. The first step you need to think about is domain name. Now, there's a whole different variety of locations where you can buy a domain name. You could use Crazy Domains, you could use GoDaddy, whatever the platform is, whichever one is comfortable for you, then go on there, purchase your domain name. To be honest, it doesn't really matter about the actual domain name, although if you're going to advertise your website, I probably just think that the shorter the better. And I mean, there's a variety of .com, .org, .biz. There's a whole bunch of different types of websites. I'd probably just look at what's standard in your industry. If you are an Australian-based business, then .com.au. If you're a worldwide business, ideally .com. But it doesn't really matter. The next thing to think about, and I think it's important to do it in this order, is emails. Now, you might have an email address which is not associated with that domain name. If you want to get your email set up that way, then there's a few options. First option is that you could set up the email with the hosting that you take your domain name with if you're going for something like a WordPress website. Now, that's an option, but it's not necessarily going to be an option that, I guess, provides the most security and reliability. Probably the second option and the third option will be the most common options, and that is number one, O365, and number two would be G Suite. Now, both options provide a level of backup or a level of support for you. What I'd ideally recommend is that you look for an email provider that actually gives you backups for emails, because what I've found is that emails are actually more important than the website. Many of the clients that I speak to could afford to do without their website for a half a day, as much as that would be an impact, but they could absolutely not afford to do without their emails. So just think about that when you're setting it up. Now, there's a whole bunch of tech stuff we'll talk about in a moment, but that's, as I said, that next step. There's pros and cons for both, but just make a choice there. And then the third thing is really to decide on the platform that you want to run with. Now, I've actually done a separate video. I'll put it here where it actually talks about the different platforms. But really, you're just going to pick a platform that's comfortable for you. And really, I mean, there's a whole bunch of choices, but probably the top ones would be WordPress if you have some tech ability and want to do it yourself. If you're not looking at selling e-commerce, then probably Squarespace and maybe Wix. And if you're looking at selling e-commerce, then probably Shopify. Now, if you have a digital product or digital products, there's a whole bunch of different types. On the very, very popular ones that I use is Kajabi. That's probably a little bit more course-based. But you pick an option that works for you, and there'll be a monthly fee either way, whether you have a WordPress website and then you have to have it hosted, or you go for one of the platforms, be it Shopify, Squarespace, etc. So then that next step really is the technical components. Now, depending on the web hosting solution or the web platform you go for, they will actually or should actually provide you technical support. If not, you can go on to freelancer.com and just put up a new project. Probably wouldn't spend any more than 20 or 30 bucks and get someone to actually help you set up the connectivity from your domain through your email and also to your website. Now, once you've done that, then really it's a case of using the editor or editors in the platform that's specific for you to go ahead and get it set up. If you have a WordPress website, and you can do this with other types of websites, but WordPress is one of the more common either template-based or customized websites, then you can go through and design the website yourself. I probably wouldn't, unless, of course, you've got design skills. I think if you've got design skills, this video is probably not for you. Again, if you just need a basic home, about us, services, or products, blog contact, then you could actually go again to freelancer.com. They're not a sponsor of this video, but they've definitely been very useful for me. I use them. And you can go on there and you can put another project up basically to get someone to design your website for you. Now, there's a whole variety of costs, but a couple $100 at max really for a 5-page website is probably fairly, I think, acceptable. And that person should be able to hold your hand through getting everything set up from a technical perspective. So you could probably use that same person, connecting your domain to your emails and your website, and then getting up and running. If you are going to use WordPress, then I would really, really strongly recommend that whatever the platform that you use for hosting, that you look for making sure that they do plugin updates for you, checking those plugin updates to make sure that they work, and backups, because there's really, I've seen it too many times now, there's really nothing worse than your website being lost because of a malware hack, or the website hosting wasn't renewed or whatever. And ideally, if that backup is done on a different server to your current web hosting platform, that's ideal. You certainly don't want to lose your website. Now, once you've got your web hosting solution, if you use one of the hosted solutions like Squarespace, Wix, and Shopify, then you shouldn't have to worry about backups, but certainly have a discussion with them if you're not sure. Really, past that, it's just customizing your website and setting it up for exactly how you want it to run. Every industry is different. Every requirement's different. The only thing that I would say is that you make it as user-friendly and as fast as possible. And depending on what sort of type of website it is that you want, whether it's a product or whether it's a services-based website or it's just a blog, just decide really on how you want people to contact you. And then deliverability of email. Now, in some countries, I know in Australia, email is opt-in rather than opt-out. So you need to actually get permission to email people. Otherwise, you can be breaking the Spam Act. I know the European Union is actually quite robust as well. Now, there are some countries where cold emails are acceptable, but I've certainly found in my experience here in Australia, it would be much better to cold call them, get their permission, and then email them. So it sort of defeats the purpose of actually emailing a client. But whatever the type of website that you've got set up is, just remember that from an email perspective that you're going to be storing people's data. So it's important that you store it confidentially. It's also important that you get permission really to store that data in the first place, which is then probably a good point to talk about privacy policy and terms and conditions. Now, I'm no legal expert. I'm not here to tell you that you should or shouldn't do something, but how you use people's information and then how they navigate on your site is just something to be aware of. If you're not sure, have a chat with an online IP lawyer, or if you've got a current lawyer in place, then have a chat with them. They can certainly give you that advice. So really, just to recap, first thing that we looked at is buying a domain name. And the way that domain names work is that there is a yearly fee for them. Typically, it's somewhere between $10 to $50 a year. Second thing is picking your email solution, whether it's going to be with your hosting provider, O365 or G Suite. Now, there's other options, but they would be the ones that I would recommend. And once you've decided on those, you then really need to pick your platform for your website, which hosting platform you're going to use. Once you've decided on that, then I'd recommend looking at, if you need help there, getting a freelancer to assist with that. And then once you've set up your website, you've got the content the way that you want it and it's up and running, just think back to the technical components around email, making sure that you've got security set up and backups. So that's it for me. And stay tuned for our future episodes where I'll be discussing more and more online secrets.